Picture this, your 8-year-old daughter, sweating under the blazing summer sun, standing outside a locked community center for 3 whole hours, because the people who were supposed to care for her, forgot her. Now imagine the rage, the heartbreak, the guilt burning inside you when you find out.
That was me.
And let me tell you, what happened next turned into the most satisfying revenge I've ever delivered in my life. If you've ever been underestimated, disrespected, or watched someone you love get treated like they don't matter, then you already know how deep this cuts. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around, because you're about to hear how I turned that pain into a lesson those people will never forget. I used to think I had built a pretty stable life for my daughter and me. Nothing glamorous, nothing perfect, but it was ours, steady, safe, predictable. My name's Claire, and I'm a single mom to an 8-year-old girl named Emily. To anyone else, I was just another working mom trying to juggle bills, deadlines, and school drop-offs. But to Emily, I was her world.
And she was mine.
Emily's the kind of kid who carries softness like it's a superpower. She isn't the loudest in the room, not the kid running wild on the playground or talking over everyone else. She's thoughtful, a little shy, and has this way of observing the world before jumping in. I used to watch her sit at the edge of a group of kids, twisting the straps of her little pink backpack in her hands until she felt brave enough to join. She always needed a gentle nudge, and that's where I came in. Every morning, I'd brush out her tangled brown hair, clip back the strands that always fell into her eyes, and pack her lunch with the same note: "You're braver than you think." I wanted her to feel, even when I wasn't standing right beside her, that she was never alone. The truth is, though, I leaned on others sometimes: family, friends, the small community network we had. Because like every parent knows, you can't be everywhere at once. And when you're raising a kid on your own, you carry this quiet, constant guilt that no matter how much you do, it'll never be enough. That summer, Emily was enrolled in a day program at the local community center. It wasn't anything fancy: arts and crafts, indoor games, a bit of reading time, and sometimes the volunteers would take them outside to the nearby park. It was affordable, which mattered more than anything, but it also gave Emily a chance to be around other kids. The program was run partly by family friends, people I'd known my whole life. My cousin Melissa volunteered there sometimes, along with her husband, and a few of the other staff were familiar faces from high school. I told myself that if Emily was with them, she'd be safe.
I convinced myself that trusting them was the same as me being there.
I remember the way Melissa laughed the first time I gave her a detailed rundown of Emily's routine. "Claire, she's 8, not 2, she said, rolling her eyes. "Relax a little. She'll be fine." That word, relax, always grated on me.
I didn't relax. I didn't get to.
Parents like me, the ones who didn't have a backup plan or another adult at home, couldn't afford to take chances.
But Melissa brushed me off every time.
To her, I was uptight, overprotective, maybe even annoying.
I swallowed it, though.
Because I didn't want to be that mom, the one people whisper about behind closed doors, calling her dramatic, exhausting, impossible to please. I told myself, it's family. Family looks out for each other. But even in those early weeks, there were cracks in the illusion. Little things I ignored because I didn't want to face what they might mean. One afternoon when I went to pick Emily up, she was sitting on the curb outside the center, picking at her shoelaces. Melissa was chatting with another parent, barely glancing at her. When Emily saw me, she ran into my arms like she'd been waiting for hours, even though I was only 10 minutes past pickup. She was fine, Melissa said with a shrug when I asked. But Emily's small hands clutched mine tighter than usual, and I noticed the way her lip trembled like she didn't want to cry in front of anyone else. That night, after I tucked her into bed, I lay awake replaying it. Something gnawed at me, a voice whispering that maybe I was ignoring warning signs. But exhaustion won, like it usually does, and I told myself it was just one of those things.
Life went on.
Work, school, pickups, dinners of macaroni and cheese when I was too tired to cook. Emily would chatter about the craft she made, the books they read.
She seemed happy enough. I clung to that. But Melissa's dismissive comments kept coming.
"Claire, you baby her too much. She needs to toughen up. You worry over nothing." Every time, I forced myself to smile, to laugh it off, even though inside I felt my stomach knotting. Because here's the thing, when someone keeps telling you you're overreacting, part of you starts to wonder if maybe they're right. I didn't know then how much those words would echo in my head the day everything finally snapped. I didn't know that the cracks I was ignoring were about to split wide open, leaving my daughter in a situation that still makes my chest tighten when I think about it. Looking back, the signs were always there, the casual carelessness, the way my concerns were brushed aside, the way my daughter's voice seemed smaller when certain people were around. But hindsight is cruel that way. At the time, I wanted so badly to believe that family meant safety.
That trusting them wasn't a gamble. I had no idea how wrong I was.
The day it happened, the heat was brutal. One of those suffocating summer afternoons where the air feels heavy, like you're breathing through a wet towel. I was stuck at work, staring at spreadsheets that blurred together, when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, until something in my gut made me pick up. "Hi, this is Linda. I'm one of the parents from the community program," the voice said. She sounded hesitant, careful. "Are you Emily's mom?"
My stomach dropped. Why would another parent be calling me?
"Yes, I am. Is everything okay?"
My voice came out sharper than I meant. There was a pause.
"Well,
I found Emily outside the community center. She's been waiting here a while."
The place was locked, and everyone else left. The words hit me like ice water. My chair screeched back as I stood. "What do you mean everyone left?" "Melissa was supposed to be there today." Another pause, this one longer, heavier.
"I think they forgot her."
"She says she's been waiting for hours."
Hours.
My hands trembled so badly I could barely grab my keys. I barely remember the drive, just flashes of red lights, the sweat running down my back, the thought repeating like a siren in my head. My little girl was left alone. When I pulled up, I saw her immediately. Emily stood by the locked glass doors, clutching her faded pink backpack to her chest. Her cheeks were flushed, damp strands of hair sticking to her forehead. She looked so small against the heavy steel frame of the building. The second she spotted me, her face crumpled. She tried to smile, like she didn't want me to see how scared she was, but her eyes gave her away. She ran into my arms, her body hot to the touch, her breath shallow. "I thought you weren't coming," she whispered, voice hoarse. I swallowed hard, holding her tighter. "Baby, I would never leave you. Never." Linda, the parent who'd called, stood nearby with her son. Her expression was apologetic, almost embarrassed, as if she was intruding on something private. "I don't know what happened," she said softly. "But she was here alone." "For at least 3 hours," she told me.
3 hours.
My chest burned. The thought of my little girl sitting out there, cars driving past, strangers walking by, the relentless sun beating down, and no one noticing, no one caring enough to stay. By the time Melissa finally returned my call that evening, her voice was casual, dismissive.
"It was a mix-up," she said.
"She's fine, isn't she? Don't make it such a big deal." But as I looked at Emily's pale face, the faint sunburn already forming across her nose, the word fine felt like an insult.
Nothing about this was fine.
And in that moment, the seed of something cold and sharp planted itself in my chest, the certainty that I would never let them brush this off. After Emily was asleep, still curled close to me like she was afraid I'd vanish if she let go, I called Melissa. My voice was shaking, but not from fear. From fury. "How could you leave her?"
I demanded.
"She's 8 years old, Melissa."
8.
She was standing outside, in 90-degree heat, 4 hours. Alone. Melissa sighed like I was complaining about something trivial, like I'd just pointed out she forgot to return a casserole dish.
"Claire, calm down. She was fine.
Kids are tougher than you give them credit for." "Fine," I snapped. My throat tightened, and I had to lower my voice so I wouldn't wake Emily. She was red-faced, dehydrated, scared out of her mind. "Do you even understand what could have happened? Anyone could have walked by Anne." "Don't be dramatic," Melissa cut in. "It was an honest mistake.
Nobody meant any harm."
"You're blowing this way out of proportion." That sentence, "you're blowing this out of proportion," it landed like a slap. I'd heard it before, too many times. The way people in my family dismissed me, painted me as uptight, controlling, paranoid. Later, at a family dinner, I tried again. Maybe if they saw the seriousness of it face to face, they'd understand. I described the phone call, Emily's cracked lips, the way she whispered that she thought I wasn't coming. But instead of outrage, what I got was laughter. My uncle chuckled. "Kids are resilient. Back in my day, we'd play outside all afternoon in the sun. Toughens them up."
Melissa chimed in with a smirk.
Honestly, Claire, maybe if you weren't so helicopter all the time, Emily wouldn't be so fragile.
She needs to learn independence.
I felt my nails dig crescents into my palms under the table. Independence?
Was being abandoned outside a locked building independence? The worst part was Emily overhearing.
She sat at the end of the table, poking at her mashed potatoes, her shoulders hunched. I caught the flicker of guilt in her eyes, like she believed what they were saying, that she was the problem. That her fear, her exhaustion, was somehow her fault. I wanted to scream. To flip the table, to shatter their smug expressions. Instead, I stayed quiet, seething, because I realized something: nothing I said would matter to them. They'd keep twisting it, keep making me the overreacting single mom.
But deep down, something shifted. The rage wasn't just hot anymore.
It was cold, sharp, deliberate. They wanted to dismiss me, to laugh this off?
Fine.
But I wasn't going to let them forget what they did.
Not this time.
That night, as Emily slept with her small hand wrapped around mine, I made a silent promise. They might think they won by silencing me at that table. But the truth?
That was the moment I stopped arguing with them. And started planning.
After that dinner, I stopped wasting my breath on explanations.
What was the point?
They'd already decided I was the hysterical single mom who needed to lighten up. Every word I threw at them only fed their smugness.
So, I went quiet.
Not the kind of quiet that meant I was defeated. No, this was the kind of quiet where you sharpen knives in the dark. At work, I found myself replaying Emily's cracked little whisper. I thought you weren't coming.
It haunted me.
My chest would tighten, and anger would rise, but instead of letting it spill out, I started writing things down. The exact date.
The temperature that day. How long she was left. The name of the parent who found her.
Every detail, every fact, every shred of truth they kept brushing aside. Because here's the thing about truth. Once you lay it out clearly enough, no amount of gaslighting can erase it. I started noticing patterns, too. Little comments from neighbors, from other parents at the community center. Melissa and her crew weren't just careless with Emily, they had a reputation for being distracted, unreliable. People muttered about forgotten snack times, late pickups, kids wandering around waiting for rides.
I'd brushed it all off before, but now? I was listening.
And the more I listened, the angrier I got.
But it wasn't just anger. It was clarity.
For the first time, I saw them for who they really were: selfish, careless, and far too confident that nothing could ever touch them. They thought they'd silence me at that dinner table, but what they really did was hand me a gift: the realization that arguing with them was useless. If I wanted justice, not just for Emily, but for every kid they'd ever treated like an afterthought, I had to make sure the whole world saw them the way I did.
And trust me, I was going to make them look. Silence became my ally.
While my family thought I had finally dropped it, I was moving pieces they didn't even know were on the board. The first thing I did was take Emily to the doctor. It wasn't just about making sure she was okay, though of course that mattered most.
It was also about documentation.
The pediatric ER noted mild dehydration, flushed skin consistent with sun exposure, and fatigue. All of it went into her chart. Official, undeniable. Next, I reached back out to Linda, the parent who'd found Emily that day. I swallowed my pride and asked if she'd be willing to put what happened in writing. She didn't even hesitate.
Of course, she said.
I couldn't believe she was out there alone. Her statement became another piece of evidence, something that couldn't be brushed off as Claire being dramatic.
I started collecting every little thing I could.
Screenshots of texts where Melissa admitted it was a mix-up. Notes from other parents who had similar complaints about her and her husband. Even casual conversations became ammunition. Meanwhile, I kept showing up to family events, smiling, nodding, acting like I was moving on. Inside, though, I was cataloging every careless slip, every dismissive remark. It was almost laughable how secure they were in their belief that I'd let it go. But I didn't just want to expose them to family, that was too small.
I wanted the community to know. I wanted every parent to think twice before leaving their child with people like Melissa.
So, I started weaving the story carefully into conversations at school, at the PTA, at neighborhood gatherings. Not in a gossipy way, but with calm, measured precision. I just want people to be aware. Emily was left alone for 3 hours in the heat.
The words carried weight because I spoke them without shouting. I had the proof to back it up. The ripple spread faster than I expected. A neighbor called me to ask for details.
Another mom pulled me aside after school drop-off, shaking her head, saying she'd always had a bad feeling about Melissa. By the time the whispers reached Melissa, I imagine she thought it was just idle chatter. She had no idea that I was building a wall of evidence behind the scenes, something far stronger than family gossip. Because this wasn't about getting the last word in an argument anymore. This was about ensuring that no one ever left my daughter, or anyone else's child, behind again. The perfect moment came at a family barbecue a few weeks later. The air smelled of charred burgers and lighter fluid, kids shrieked around a sprinkler, and everyone was buzzing with the kind of shallow cheerfulness that only exists when people are pretending everything is fine. Melissa was in her element, holding court with her wine glass, laughing loudly at some story that painted her as the fun, carefree cousin. I watched her for a moment, her smug confidence, the way she tilted her head like she was untouchable. And I knew it was time.
I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam my hand on the table.
Instead, I waited until there was a lull in conversation, then spoke softly. "Funny thing," I said, looking around at the group. "Do you all know Emily was left outside the community center for 3 hours last month? 90-degree heat.
No adults.
Just her, sitting on the curb with her backpack." The silence was immediate and heavy. Heads turned. Melissa's smile froze, then twitched. "Oh, for God's sake, Claire," she scoffed. "You're dragging that up again."
I didn't take my eyes off her.
I pulled out a neatly folded paper from my bag, Linda's statement.
It's not just me saying it.
Other parents saw.
They wrote it down.
And the doctor confirmed Emily had dehydration symptoms.
The murmurs started.
An aunt furrowed her brow. Someone whispered, 3 hours.
Melissa's husband tried to laugh it off. Kids are fine.
People are making it sound worse than it was. That's when I set my phone on the table and tapped the screen. Text messages lit up for everyone to see, Melissa's own words. It was a mix-up. Her face drained of color. "This isn't me being dramatic," I said, my voice steady.
"This is the truth.
And if you don't believe me, ask the PTA. Ask the other parents. They all know now."
The room had shifted.
The power dynamic snapped in half like a brittle twig. For the first time, Melissa wasn't smirking. She was shrinking, her eyes darting as if searching for an escape.
I didn't yell. I didn't need to.
The evidence did all the shouting for me. And as the whispers turned into sharp stares aimed at her, I felt a wave of relief crash over me.
They thought they'd silence me. Instead, I'd silence them.
After that barbecue, things unraveled for Melissa faster than even I expected. Word doesn't just travel in small communities, it spreads like wildfire. Within a week, the PTA president reached out to me directly, asking for details. I handed over everything, Linda's written statement, the doctor's notes, the screenshots. 2 days later, Melissa's name quietly disappeared from the volunteer roster at the community center. By the next month, other parents stopped leaving their kids with her altogether. Her little side gig of babysitting for extra cash?
Gone.
People didn't want the woman who left a child baking in the sun anywhere near their kids.
And the best part?
She couldn't spin it. She tried. Oh, she tried. She told anyone who'd listened that I was blowing it out of proportion, that I had some vendetta against her. But against written proof, against her own words and text, against a child's pale, sunburnt face?
She had nothing. The smugness she'd worn like armor cracked.
She started ducking out of gatherings, avoiding eye contact in public. For someone who thrived on being the fun cousin, becoming a pariah was the cruelest justice of all. But the real payoff wasn't watching her squirm. It was Emily. One night, weeks later, she crawled into my lap while we were reading a book. Her small voice was steady when she asked, "Mom, people believe me now, right? They know it wasn't my fault." I hugged her tight. "Yes, baby. Everyone knows. And none of it was ever your fault." Her shoulders relaxed in a way I hadn't seen since that awful day. And in that moment, I felt it, the weight I'd been carrying finally lifting. I hadn't just gotten revenge. I'd shown my daughter that her safety, her voice, her worth mattered more than anyone else's comfort. Melissa thought she could dismiss me, make me the crazy overprotective mom. Instead, she destroyed her own reputation.
Emmy?
I walked away with something far more powerful than their approval, my daughter's trust. At the end of the day, revenge didn't look like screaming matches or throwing plates across the room. It looked like truth, laid out so clearly that no one could ignore it. They left my daughter in the sun for 3 long hours, and then tried to laugh it off like it was nothing.
But kids aren't nothing.
Their safety, their dignity, their trust, that's everything.
What they saw as overprotectiveness, I see now as instinct.
A parent's job isn't to be easygoing or popular. It's to make sure their child knows, without a shadow of a doubt, that they matter. And for me, justice wasn't just watching Melissa's reputation crumble. It was seeing Emily's eyes light up again when she realized she'd been heard, believed, and defended. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button and share it with someone who believes in standing up for what's right. Tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying moment of justice you've ever seen?
I'd love to hear it.
And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more stories just like this one, stories of betrayal, payback, and the kind of justice that makes you believe in karma all over again. Because sometimes, the sweetest revenge is simply telling the truth loud enough that no one can ignore it.